Should we go through the waiver wire? They're going to be random blokes you've never heard of. They're going to be pop-off legends for the fantasy playoffs. We're here to pop off with them, Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and do you want me to turn on the bubbles? I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky, joshlloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Also check out lockedondaily.com. Over there you can find the best newsletter for your favorite NBA team. It's in your inbox 5 days a week. Check it out. It's lockedondaily.com. And over here you just subscribe and you follow and you leave your comments. That is a great way of helping out the show. So we've got 4 weeks left. 4 weeks left to the end of the NBA season, and we're talking waiver wire. So obviously our focus is going to be short term and things are going to change a lot. We do the daily streaming shows to show you what you can do each individual day and provide value on the weekly preview show. I hope value anyway, about trying to plan out a week and work out little chunks of guys to attack and where we can get our value. This one here sort of blends a lot of that stuff. We talk about, it's about weekly leagues, a bit of long-term thinking. We talk about roto leagues. We talk about short-term stuff as well. So we're not necessarily looking for all 4 weeks of the season, because even in a roto format, that is stupid, because whatever happens this week, like there are blokes that we're going to talk about, like a guy I'm not even going to have prepared on a graphic today that I'm going to mention. I'll do it right now. Like Jalen Hood-Schifino he scored 20 points today. Jalen Hood-Schifino, he played 2 minutes, I think, combined for the season. He scored 20 points because the Sixers are just not going to play anybody. So randoms like that are going to pop up. There's going to be some unknown dude. None of you would have been thinking about Brandon Williams until the last 3 weeks, or Kai Jones, or Colin Castleton. You would have heard of him. And these guys are here now. And there's going to be these random people that pop up in the second last week of the season for any team having an opportunity to do something. And me telling you this guy's an ad and you lock him in for the next 2 weeks, it's ridiculous. And any sort of decision you make at any point through this time of the year, I think is worth, who do I add for this week? You add based on literally what's happening now, the next 2 days, the next 3 days. Weekly league stuff, we talked a little bit about yesterday. Again, that's probably the furthest out you want to go when thinking about the value of players. Roto is a little bit different. If you've got a spot you can stash something and go, I think something here might break. And then we get this opportunity, like it's Jared Butler maybe, or it's Jeff Dowden, or it's a Dem Boner who's currently out and you just sit him on your bench, right? But most of the time where we can't extend our view out 4 weeks, it's impossible, because there is going to be a million different things that take place over the next 24 hours, the next 3 days, the next week, all that stuff. It brings me to another separate point. I just want to get some of these points out because I think of them and that they come out. And this is what's going to happen this season, right? Is the Spurs and Steph Castle, he's going to win Rookie of the Year without any question. You can debate whether he is the best rookie this season. That's depending on how you want to view that, whatever. You know my thoughts on Castle as a player and his future and all that sort of stuff. Everyone knows that. We'll go through more of that stuff in the offseason. But what you are going to also see is the Spurs, it's going to come out and he's going to win. And it's going to, my God, the Spurs, they're set. They've got the last 2 Rookie of the Year winners. And they're going to have another lottery pick. Who knows how high it goes. They've got the last 2 Rookie of the Year winners. And I'm going to bring this back to fantasy, but Victor Wembanyama as the Rookie of the Year and Steph Castle as the Rookie of the Year, the trophies look the same, but they're not remotely the same thing. Right? They're not even close to being the same thing, because what you do in a certain situation is based on who you're up against, and that's important. You only can beat who's in front of you. That we know that as a mantra in real life and in sport. It's important in fantasy as well, because I've had these debates with people before about players, and they'll look at their stats and they'll go, he's projected to average 20 points and 3 threes with 5 rebounds. He did something similar to that back 3 years ago, and he was the 30th ranked player. Why do you think he's the 80th ranked player now? And I understand from a logical perspective, without understanding the nuances of what we do, it does make sense. But you have to remember that everything that happens in fantasy, especially category leagues with rankings, it's all based on what everybody else is doing. So if you hit 3 threes a game, back in 2005, you were the best in the league. If you hit 3 threes a game now, you're a bench player playing 18 minutes, like so to speak, right? And that's where the rankings of category leagues, I do a lot of work on this stuff. It's all relative. So straight comparing numbers, and when those numbers occur is really a way that you can sometimes be like, he was 30th or he was 40th and he was this back then. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's more just a context. We've got to break down all the context. We've got to figure out the context to work out where it makes sense, why it's in this spot, why it's here, why it's not here. And that's, because I saw this when I was looking at a picture of Castle and I saw someone talk about, man, the Spurs are loaded. They're going to have the 2 Rookie of the Years in a row. Like, yeah, but Steph Castle would have finished 10th in the Rookie of the Year before, probably. That's a made-up number, but like they're not the same thing. And we can look at that for fantasy as well. And it was brought up by another person I was discussing something with on Basketball Monster. Or he brought up a comment and said, man, look at the numbers Quinton Grimes is putting up. I go, they're great. They're like top 5 fantasy numbers. They're unbelievable numbers that he's putting up. But look at who is on his team, and the context around that is very important. Cool. We're talking waiver wire. It is St. Patrick's Day where I am here, 17th of March. Not that we necessarily celebrate that bigly down here, but I know that you guys in America, for some reason, have an obsession with St. Patrick's Day. I don't really get it. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. I know there are people who live in Ireland that watch this show. I believe, and Matt Carmody, who's a massive fantasy guy, he's always in the chat of many fantasy shows here all the time. I believe, Matt, you're American, you live in Ireland. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, Matt, if you're watching this. St. Patrick's Day is way bigger in America than it is in Ireland, yeah? No, who cares? That's where we're off to a incredibly slow start. Let's talk about the most added players on Basketball Monster. The number 1 most added player is someone that when we saw the news that Bilal Coulibaly was out for the season, I went and adjusted all the projections on Basketball Monster, and this guy's numbers came out as like top 75. And immediately, of course, when you see that, you go, really? Justin Champagnie? What are we talking about? Why have you got him so high, Josh? That should be your natural reaction. I went, Jesus Christ, really? Has he come out that high? So I went and looked at the numbers, and I went, okay, I can't really see what's wrong with what the numbers are. And then he's had 2 starts since then. He's the 81st ranked player according to Durant. He's top 80 in fantasy points leagues. He's still only rostered in 19% of leagues, and he's still doing this on 13 usage. Why is he able to do it? Elite rebounds, elite steals, unbelievable blocks from a position, efficiency pretty good, hitting 1.5 threes. Now, a lot of that stuff won't hold. Like, he won't average 2 steals and 0.8 blocks, probably. He might not average 10 rebounds. He probably won't shoot 100% from the line. But he does have an incredibly good fantasy skill set. We've talked about the Champagnies, mainly Julian last season, but we've talked about Justin a little bit this time, that the value is there. He just needed to get the pathway to minutes. And now it's required a few things, obviously. Kuzma gone and Bilal out. 2 things needed to happen, and they both happened. I would think that he plays 30 minutes a night every game rest of season, although the Wizards, with that win yesterday, what an outrageous Jordan Poole shot to win that game, by the way. They are now not in the number 1 seed for the number 1 pick. They're number 2. They've dropped behind the Jazz. So, not that I think that Champagnie is necessarily creating wins, but maybe he is. Anyway, he's creating wins on fantasy teams. This is the no-brainer. It's not a league winner, because that's not a real thing. He is the guy that you have to add. His schedule is independent here for Champagnie. You're not worried about... If you add him, he will not be your worst player that you stream through. I feel very confident in saying that. He will be your, at worst, 8th or 9th best player. He will not be, I don't think, a streaming guy. Now, we can assess this later on if they bump his minutes back down, but I'm very confident in category leagues, points leagues, maybe as well. About the 8th best guy on your team would be my guess. And that's incredibly valuable. So he's putting up great numbers. The next most added player is Trey Jones. And I am now of the mindset that Lonzo is not coming back. He hurt his wrist earlier this season, took a while out, came back, started to play a lot of minutes and get everything going, and the wrist is injured again. And again, they haven't said this, but I try to pass through the words that teams put out there. One thing we know, if the Bulls say someone's out for a week, they're going to list them doubtful the next day, and of course they're not going to return for a week. Shout out for that happening for 2 times to Josh Giddey this season. It's happening at the moment. But the words they're talking about with Lonzo are also, by the way, the Bulls. You realize that is why you soured your entire relationship with Derrick Rose, yes? Your team and PR came out and said, I don't know why he's not playing. He's healthy. He should be out there. And Rose is like, bro, come on, man. What are you doing? I've just had my 2nd knee surgery. I'm not ready to go. No, man, you're actually healthy. Our doctor said you're good to go. You should be playing, you soft prick. That's basically so they're coming out and say, hey, this guy's out for a week, doubtful. All right. And it is hard not to believe an official report. You go, well, doubtful, that's a great sign. That means he's got a chance. No, it doesn't. It means that they're lying, and I don't know why they do it. I know, actually, you know what? I do know why they do it. They do it to create false hope in the fans to buy tickets, because that is all Reinsdorf cares about. Ooh, maybe Giddy plays. You see the big draw? I don't know. So anyway, back to Lonzo. I think he's done. I think the season might be over for Lonzo. I don't know that. I try to translate team speak. I think Lonzo's done. And that means that Trey Jones will start rest of season. Now, Jones is on an incredibly hot scoring run, which I don't really buy because he's not a shooter at all. But there is this opportunity here very clearly for him. And while Giddy is out, it's bumped even further. He is a guy to roster at this stage, and I can't believe that's where we got to for a team that had 25 point guards. The 25th of them is now starting and play 33 minutes. Sumu out, Giddy out, ball out. Again, it takes so many things to happen. And this is, again, one of those things. And I feel like I'm going along here because I am. If we talk about the context, you look at the numbers that, Trey Jones, he put up good numbers post-break. What do we do with him next season? Maybe he's the Bulls guy. Because it required so much to get to this spot. And that's not going to be a real thing as we move forward, most likely. Moses Moody, the next most added player. Part of the reason you want to add Moses Moody here, but Jemski remains out. There is a back-to-back, but they play 3 games in 4 nights. And people pulled me up on this, rightfully so, in the weekly preview. I said the Warriors are the only team to start the week with a 3-game in 4-night period. And that is true if I had have given the correct qualifier, which I thought I did earlier, but I didn't, I don't think. They have 3 games in 4 nights, Monday through Thursday. Many other teams do as well. The only team that does it without playing on Wednesday, the 11-game day, is Golden State. That is what separates them. A lot of teams have the Wednesday, Thursday back-to-back. That's not useful as a 3 games in 4 nights. The Warriors going Monday, Tuesday, Thursday is incredibly useful. They're the only team that does it. That is where Moses Moody value comes in. You get 3 usable games in 4 nights. Pajemski's going to miss at least 1. Kuminga probably misses at least 1 as well. That's where the value is. 2 Sixers point guards that aren't named Jalen Hood-Schifino, Jeff Doughton and Jared Butler. Now, the Hood-Schifino appearance today, I guess, throws some doubt on where this is going to go. Doughton on where this is going to go. But I would have Butler over Doughton. I just think Butler's a better assist guy. But they are because these are all not very good players. So you're going to get inconsistency. You're going to get cycling through these guys. The guy with the highest draft stock is Hood-Schifino, whether that means anything to you or not. He's also the youngest of that group. So they've added Doughton and Butler, and I get it. Adding them today, they play tomorrow. Makes sense. Just don't be afraid to move on if you see things trending the wrong way. And the next most added player is Gershon Yabusele, who he's doing nothing. It doesn't matter that Embiid is in or out. I think on this show we've been pretty good with that, being on that as like, hey, this is not a must roster player at all. It doesn't matter who's in or out. He just doesn't do enough to justify a must roster spot on your squad. And again, I think that's held pretty well. We'll come back for some more waiver wire guys. Today's episode is brought to you by the swooshing and saving legends at DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready, because thanks to Dash Pass, whenever an NBA player drops 50 points in a game, the next day you get a huge deal. When a player scores 50 in an NBA 24-25 regular season game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. Whatever it is you're looking for, late night feasts and cravings and burgers or party platters for a watch party, whatever it is you want, just something, an individual snack to put under your covers and eat while you're, whatever you're doing under the covers at 2 a.m. in the morning. I don't care. Do whatever you need to do. Sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. You use the promo code NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders of participating merchants. You must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel gives you the chance to get in on the action like never before. You can get $200 in bonus bets as a new customer if your first $5 bet wins. That is $200 extra bucks, so you can use that all tournament long. Cinderella stories, buzzer beaters, upsets, total who's going to win, who's going to cut down the nets, individual game totals and spreads and lines. It's all there. And get those bonus bets in and get those bonus bucks back from winning that $5 bet. And when you do win, you get paid out instantly. There's no waiting around. So go to FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, after all those segues which I'm sure there'll be something else that comes up that I'm not aware of. We're going to move into the most added players over on Yahoo. Number 1 there is Kyle Filipowski. John Collins is out for 2 weeks with an ankle sprain, which I'm sure will turn into 4 weeks, and I do not think we will see John Collins again, so move on from him. Now, that does not automatically mean that Kyle Filipowski starts every single game. We have seen them start guys like KJ Martin. We have seen them start Larry Markkinen at the 4 and put Johnny Juzang or Svi Mihailuk into the 3 spot. We know that there is going to be shenanigans with this team. We know they're going to have to be a little bit more careful with Larry Markkinen, but we also saw that they didn't have to be careful at all with Walker Kessler. They just said, no, I'm not even going to tell you that he's injured. He's just not going to play. Now, they do have a stretch against very good teams. They play Minnesota Sunday, so we'll see what happens. It's Chicago and Washington, so they're terrible. Clearly, then it's Boston, Cleveland, Memphis, Houston. That is a run of very good teams. Then it's Denver. So, well, that's actually, is Denver a very good team? Don't know. So watch it, because Kessler could just play all those games. Markkinen could play all those games. Sexton and Clarkson, who knows? They go back and forth. Just be aware of that. But now they are in the spot they wanted to get to. If they lose every game from here, they will get the number 1 slot, meaning they can drop down only to number 5 and have a very good shot at a top 4 pick. They will not want to jeopardize that at all. So having Filipowski, even though I think he's a good player, he can be up and down in terms of production. I think for the most part, with Collins done, you're good with him. I think you're good to have him. Keon Johnson, the most added player, because he was a rightful drop because he was playing terribly. But now that Cam Thomas has pinged his hamstring for the 3rd straight time, and yes, you know that I have concerns with guys who injured same body parts multiple times, more so when they have surgery on it. But Zion's hamstring, I'm worried about having that multiple hamstring strain. I'm not that worried about Cam Thomas here because I'll put it out there. I'm not sure about the validity of this one. I'm not sure how serious it actually is. I'm not sure that it actually happened, to be honest. I think it probably did. It is if he did actually ping his hamstring, miss 2 months, come back, miss another month, or whatever it was it 3 months total, and come back and add another 4 weeks, that should be incredibly worrying. That is a horrid situation. I'm not really sure about it, though. Anyway, he's done. Keon Johnson now has a pathway to start basically every night. I'm very certain that D'Angelo Russell will not play all the season, and at very worst, he won't play back-to-backs. So Keon has a run here. Him and Ziaire Williams' value is bumped. Are they good enough to just lock in and hold? Probably not. But I get adding him. The guy that I am very interested in is Orlando Robinson up in Toronto. Now, what part of the news, and this is what's crazy about this time of year, we're all waiting to say, hey, man, are they going to sign Colin Castleton to a second 10-day? They did. So Castleton's playing today. That means at the end of his 10-day, the last game that he can play on this 10-day is the 24th of March. So Castleton can play all the way through to the 24th of March now. But Robinson is the guy that's playing huge minutes. Look at those numbers there. He's the 50th ranked player in category leagues over the last week in 31 minutes. He's 38th in points leagues. We've talked about him for a long time, since before he was drafted, when he went to Miami, even this offseason when he went to Sacramento. Hey, their backup centers are terrible. Why would he has a chance there to play over Alex Len? And of course, they're idiots and they didn't do it. And it's taken a long time. But we're here. And I'm very certain that Jakob Poeltl's not playing out the year. He averaged 17 and 11 over the last week, Robinson, with 5 assists. And the thing is, this could be better because he's only averaging 1 block. He hasn't got a single steal, and he's only shooting 47%. It is not insane. It's a little bit insane. It's not insane that Robinson could be a top 25 player down the stretch. That is not insane. So obviously that means must roster. Now, of course, if they decide they want to go to Castleton, Mobo, and Poeltl, then he's going to be cooked. He needs the 26 minutes. I feel pretty good about him getting him. So I do believe that Robinson's a guy we roster. He's up to 26 on Yahoo and 84 on Basketball Monster in terms of percentages rostered. But it can go all right, don't get me wrong. But I'd be... Him and Champagnie, to me, that's why I've highlighted them as the 2 players to highlight early on. They're the 2 guys that I'm interested in grabbing here. Let's go through the rest of these names. The 2 other names the most added on Yahoo, Donovan Clingan and Scoot Henderson. I'm not saying they're bad ads, but how are they available in that many leagues to make it onto the leaderboard of most added players? I know that Clingan's sitting at like 29%. Scoot must be low. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Now, Scoot to me is debatable. I get that because I think Scoot's been playing really well. I've been really impressed with the way that he's turned his season around. And realistically, no one's actually talking so much about what he's been able to do this season. I think he's been very good. It's frustrating that they don't let him play and start, but he's played 30 minutes plus he's played 30 minutes in the last 3 games. And I like that. I would love to see that continue. I don't know what they're going to do with Thibault and Rob Williams, who were available that didn't play last game. I don't know what's going to happen with Grant moving forward. Klingon, yes, is a guy I just want to roster, just as a general rule, we roster him. And they do play 4 games next week. One's on Wednesday, yes. Scoot's fine. To me, he was a guy, and I think he probably still is a little bit of a guy that you can consider dropping in bad schedule spots. But their bad schedule spot is done. That was this week. And that's over now. And now they've got a pretty good run at things. So yeah, I get it. I just didn't think they'd be on this list. And the next one there is the Hong Kong mattress, Carson Wallace, who, with the absence of Jalen Williams and then Dort got hurt, people added him. And that also makes sense. He is a stream guy when the schedule works. Unfortunately for this week coming up, it does not work. They don't play Monday. They don't play Tuesday. They play Wednesday with the 11 games on. And then they don't play Thursday. That's a terrible schedule. And then they play Friday with 10 games on, which you probably would use him. But Carson Wallace, of course I know it's Kaysen. He is not a guy, I think, that you just lock up a roster spot. He was very good last game, but I don't think you lock up a roster spot to get 0-0, high volume 0. It's a crazy move. Don't do it. Roto Leagues, absolutely fine to do it. He's solid enough to consider while these guys are out. But by the time their schedule actually turns into something usable, Williams and Dort are probably there. And then he's a 25-minute-a-night steal streamer. So don't get too far out ahead there with Carson Wallace. Today's episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and go, hey, where did all my money go? Dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it can be easy to lose track, and that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It isn't just a budgeting app, though. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and all of your spending in one place. So don't just manage your money. In fact, stop just managing your money. Start building your wealth. When you start using Monarch, you see how much you're spending on food deliveries. And now you can budget better. You can work out where the money is going. You can track your investments all in one place. So you're not opening multiple apps. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is monarchmoney.com. Code is LOCKEDONNBA for half off for your first year. All right. Sorry for the verbosity of today's show. Let's go into some dropped players. The most dropped players on Basketball Monster. Number 1 there is Cam Thomas. Easy, done, out for the season. His free agency is going to be incredibly intriguing. What's your prediction? Over, under $20 million a year? I'm going to say, I'll say it's under. I would not want to give, if it was just me as the GM, I would be saying here, have 3 years, $33 million. There is no way in the world I would give him $20 million a year, but I know that other people have different ideas. But so what, you can either reply in 2 ways. You can either comment what you would think you would give Cam Thomas or what you think he's going to get as a restricted free agent. Max Christie's been dropped. The Mavericks game from Sunday is over, and he was much better in that game. And we've talked about that. He had a horrific run, right? But the role was there. And at some point he was going to have a better game, and that did happen today. And the question now about Dallas is going to be, is Jaden Hardy going to play? Because if Jaden Hardy and Caleb Barton, who are both out today, if they both return and you get into a bit of squishiness, but now we're at a spot where Kessler Edwards has only got 2 games left and Williams has got 4 games left, where does it fit? Now, all of this said, they played 2 games this week, so you're not holding Christie through that. So that's more of a longer-term roto spot. People dropped Chris Dunn, and I get it. He didn't do anything last game, but part of the idea, and I've in my hypothetical stream study stuff, he was one of the guys that I added for the week for a 4-game run just to see what would happen, and I'll give the results of that on the recap show later today. I would have tried to maybe just hold for today. He's already there on your roster. What have you dropped for? But whatever. Totally okay if you want to move on. Not a problem. Andre Drummond's been dropped. The big avocado is completely washed. He's injured now. I would not be shocked if he doesn't play again this season and they just go with Boner and Reese as the centers and Yabusele. Keon Ellis has been dropped. Very, very similar to Dunn in terms of the production that he gives. His minutes are way down. Plus, but this one makes sense. They don't play Saturday, Sunday. It's an easy drop. And then Yves Missy, who should have been dropped, 3 months ago. People have dropped him because he missed 1 game. He has not been good from a fantasy perspective. From a real-life perspective, he has been totally adequate. And in this rookie class, that probably gets you second in Rookie of the Year. He's been adequate. Again, this will all come out in the offseason, the stuff that I talk about with these players. I don't see it for him as a long-term star-level player. But he's been adequate. But he just shouldn't have been held on to for this long. In Yahoo, the most dropped player, Zach Collins. Easy drop. Sometimes with these guys, you have to make early calls. And you could have dropped Zach Collins before Vooch returned. I think you would have done okay. Dropping him now is an absolute no-brainer. And interestingly, they played Collins and Jalen Smith together last game. That was intriguing. Asar Thompson. Minutes restriction? No, they just don't want to play him. And if they don't want to play him, then you don't want to play him. Easy. I hate that part of this job is trying to call out coaches and teams on lies that they say. It is part of the job, but it is frustrating. Asar dropped. Andrew Nembhard dropped. Yep, you stream him in. That's all you need to do. Benedict Mathurin basically just kicked out of the rotation. He played like 13 minutes last game. Understandably, he's not very good. He can have opportunities when other players are out, but when they are healthy, there is no shot you're rostering him. Kelly Oubre Jr. I don't know whether Oubre is returning. I would lean towards probably not. If we're going to be honest, I don't think he will be. So I think it is totally reasonable to drop Oubre. And then Jose Alvarado, who last game actually started to play a lot of minutes. His production was pretty bad, but that was interesting that people were rostering him. He finally got to 28 minutes, didn't have a very good game. People said, all right, you're done. I think opportunity, when you're looking at single game sample sizes, opportunity is more valuable than, hey, did you have a night where no shots went in? But what do I know? Use him as a stream guy rather than a must roster, unless if we hear that CJ is not playing again, then we get more into someone like Alvarado as a longer term play. Let's look at the top 100 guys over the last week and 6 names that I want to highlight in this list that we haven't talked about yet. Brandon Williams is the 47th ranked player during that time. He has been very good for Dallas. He had a little bit of a hamstring injury, came back. He didn't Domantas Sabonis it, but he did come back and play. He played 32 minutes today. The problem now is he has 5 more games left on his 2-way contract, and they played 2 games for this week. So you don't need to be rostering him in a head-to-head daily league.
Get that garbage out of here.
I know he's been the 47th ranked player over the last 2 weeks, over the last week. That's great. I don't think that is worth holding this week. Again, what if Hardy is back for one of those games? Where does his value go? I don't think that is worth it. He has been good. In Roto, you can hold him, but and deploy him on these individual days. But understand, there are 5 games left for him. And yes, either he or Kessler Edwards or Kai Jones can be converted to a full-time contract for the final 2 games of the season, which both occur on 15-game slates. Kai Jones is becoming more interesting now because of all the time that he's missed. I think he can basically play every one of their games that are remaining except for 1. And that's not including those final 2 games of the year. So he's getting to a stage where you don't worry, because he's missed so much time, we don't worry about that. But obviously PJ's back. But Kai will be a guy that I think that will just straight take over Kessler Edwards minutes. Just keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on Kai Jones. Edwards has got 2 games left. That's this week. So I would think that Kai doesn't play this week. Edwards rolls out his max, and then Jones is the guy after that. Just keep an eye on that. The next guy I want to talk about, he's had a really hot run. It is Kevin Porter Jr. And we know that for some reason he's someone that people like. He's the 54th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's had a couple of very strong games in Milwaukee. Does it mean anything? That's what we want to know. Does it mean anything? He's 27 fantasy points over that time. He's something like he's not, people haven't really grabbed him, 5% rostered. He's 30% usage. Okay. He's shooting 95 from the line. He doesn't do that. He's hitting 2.3 threes. Okay. 16 points. That's in 18 minutes. You're talking about him going at like 36 points per 36 minutes. He's basically at a point per minute. He's close enough to that. Those numbers, 16, 4, and 3, with 0.7 steals and 0.7 blocks, they are the numbers of a player of his ability on this team would usually be doing in 29 minutes. If you had a 28-minute role and you got those numbers, you go, oh, I like that. That's usable. I'm happy with that. But he's not getting that role. He just had an incredible 2 games of high efficiency and incredibly high usage that just is not likely to hold. So while he's been good, and if you streamed him in on either of the last 2 games on individual days, you got really good stuff out of it. It's not something that I'm caring about. It's not something that I'm viewing long term. He just had a really, really high usage run, a really hot run in terms of shooting threes, and everything went right, and I don't think that you need to care about that. Spencer Dinwiddie is the 55th ranked player over the last week. He's been pretty good. I know that it's easy to trash on him because he is washed completely. But you give me top 60 run, I'm very happy with that. But with a 2-game week, we are moving on very, very easily. Kessler Edwards, another Maverick. It's interesting that all these Mavs have really popped off and now they're useless. Edwards, the 62nd ranked player. PJ Washington is back. He has got 2 games left only, Kessler Edwards, and I think he'll play them this week and then he'll be done. So I don't even think there's worth any point holding on to him after this. He is an easy drop. Lou Dort, the 68th ranked player, had a couple of hot games. Jalen Williams is out. terrible schedule, and he is injured. We don't need to roster him. So you can look at these ranks. This is where context is important. Because you might look at this list and go, man, these are all available. Williams, Porter, Dinwiddie, Edwards, Dort, man. And they're all top 70 players the last week. Why wouldn't I add them? Well, there's the reasons why you wouldn't add them. The only one there I can see being or working is if he continues a hot run is Kevin Porter. These other guys, none of it makes any sense to add them. The last name I want to talk about is Scottie Pippen, who's the 72nd ranked player. Morant was out last game. Pippen seems to now be back in favour over Luke Kennard, and we've talked about that a bit on this show. Trying to identify trends as they're happening is a key part of getting ahead of it in fantasy. And I'm not sure that it's going to last the rest of season, but if he's a 25-minute a night player, which he has been when Ja has been healthy, that's okay. Those assist and steals are really useful. So he's interesting enough here, Scott, especially for 14-team leagues, that we can't just fully ignore that, I don't think. Got 6 other names I want to talk about, and we're going to go to a couple of guys who are really schedule-based for this week. Let's start in Golden State. Let's go to Postman Pat himself, Quinton Post. Yes, Quinton Post. He was a late second-round pick for the Warriors. They needed to figure out a way to create space to even sign him. They have converted him off the two-way. Over the last week, 122nd in categories, 153 in points leagues. He's rostered in 5% of leagues. He's got 9 and 6. They're not great numbers. But you add in 2.3 threes, you add in 1.7 blocks. The shooting numbers are horrific, 43 from the field and 50 from the line. But remember, the Warriors, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, it's only them and literally no other team that play that schedule. And when you are looking for value, Podziemski's going to miss a game. Kuminga's going to miss a game. Podziemski might miss 2 or 3. Maybe Draymond misses. Maybe Steph misses. This is a hot pickup to begin the week. It's an incredibly hot pickup to begin the week. Quinton Post. If you want to get 3 games in 4 nights, this is the hot pickup to get. It's him or Moody. They're the 2 guys. And Post, again, the numbers aren't fantastic. But the thing that you would look at that it's dragging it down is he's averaging 9 points. Do you believe that he's 43 and 50 as a shooter? He could be. But what if he has, in those 3 games, he goes 50 and 75, averages 13 with 2.5 threes, 6 rebounds, 1.5 blocks? You're cooked. You're cooked. That's bloody brilliant, right? They are fantastic numbers. And even just those numbers, just triple them. 1 ad, you get 27 points, 6 threes, 18 rebounds, 5 assists, 5.5 blocks. That's unbelievable for 1 ad. This week is about the Warriors, the Hornets, the Wizards, and the Hawks. They're the teams that it's about this week. And then on the downside, it's about the Grizzlies, the Wolves, and the Suns, the Mavericks and the Magic. They're the bad teams. But the good teams, it's Charlotte, it's Golden State, it's Washington, it's Atlanta. They're the teams. They're the only teams that are good this week for schedules. So that's why we're looking at Quinton Post. That is also why we're looking at the next guy, who, for some reason, and I don't know whether it holds, but he is starting, and his name is Daquan Jeffries, who, honestly, he might be one of the worst 10 players in the entire NBA. He was a throw-in. He's only on a contract because the Knicks needed to find a way to make money to match to trade for Mikal Bridges. The Hornets said, thanks, we'll get in on this. He wasn't going to get a contract almost definitely. He got paid like $4.5 million to make the salaries match. He didn't play for about the first 4 months of this season, and now he is a starter in Charlotte. But that's important because the Hornets are the only team to play Thursday, Friday on a back-to-back. They're the only team to have a Thursday, Friday, Sunday 3-game in 4-night combination. I think they also play Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They've got them and the Warriors, the only teams with 4 quality games this week. He is rostered in no leagues anywhere. None, apparently. He's 130th in head-to-head category leagues the last week. He's averaging 22 fantasy points. And remember, there are 2 teams with 4 streaming days. 22 fantasy points, 88 points for the week, for example. Why not? He's averaging 14 points with 3 threes. Is he shooting crazily? 48 from the field? I guess a little bit. 100 from the line, whatever. 1.3 blocks. But he's also got 1.3 rebounds and 1 assist. That can go up. He's playing 33 minutes. Would they move back to Nick Smith? They could. They definitely could. But LaMelo might sit a game. Mark Williams, well, they're definitely going to sit a game. What about Miles Bridges? Quinton Post and Daquan Jeffries are not good players. But it's about finding the players with interesting skill sets, with increased opportunity, who have schedule advantage over everyone else. And that's where he comes in. And that's why we're talking about him. The next guy on this list is Ricky Council IV. Council played quite a bit today for the Sixers. Obviously, a lot of this has to do with who is in or out. Paul George is not returning. He's not returning. Tyrese Maxey, not returning. Kelly Oubre, not returning. Feel pretty confident about all of that. Lonnie Walker, probably out for a little bit more time. They've moved away from Justin Edwards into Council at the moment. He had a double-double today with a triple-one. Again, this team is very weird. O'Shea Brissett exists on this team, who's another interesting guy as well. You're just going to be targeting any Sixers guys who's getting minutes. But Council's someone who flashed a little bit at the end of last season, so much so they had to take him off his two-way onto a full contract because he was that good. Well, yeah, for that level. And, yeah, he's interesting. He's been in and out of favour with Nick Nurse, but he's in favour now, so he's in favour with you. Taurean Prince has been playing well. He's got a really solid role. We know what we're getting out of Prince. That's useful. Now, they only have 3 games this week, but they're all low-volume day, well, they're all quality games. They're all streamable days. And Prince at least gives you a value of, hey, here's some threes. Here's some minutes. Here's some steals. Just someone to not discount completely. Colin Castleton is back on the second 10-day. Again, their team is very much hit or miss. But we know they have a schedule that is unbelievable. Portland, Phoenix, the Warriors, tough matchup. Spurs, Wizards, Nets, Hornets. Bro. That's the So that Nets game is the last game on his 10-day. And he can be signed full season. If he does get signed full season after that, it means Jared Rhoden can't be unless they waive somebody else. But Castleton's been playing big minutes. He's a guy that had incredible translations coming out of Florida. Thought he looked good in the Lakers G League. I thought he looked good in the G League, in the Summer League this season. Thought he looked way better than some of the other guys that are out there on the court with him. And who was the guy that was out there on the court with him in those Summer League games that went, this guy is way better than this other player? Who was it? I can't remember. I cannot remember who it was, but he just looked significantly better than the other guy who was the star who was playing ahead of him. I don't remember who it was. Anyway, he puts up numbers. And with the way this schedule plays, now they've got a weird Monday, Thursday next week. That's not ideal because you miss on that Tuesday, but it's not terrible. And I think Castleton for this he's got 5 games that he can play on this 10-day. I think that we look at him as a streamer and maybe a guy we just hold on to. Not sure on that though. The last one there is Kevin Huerter. As long as Josh Giddey is out, Huerter is worth using because he'll play 30 minutes. He'll have opportunities to score and shoot. But when Giddey returns, he will move to the bench before Trey Jones almost certainly. Huerter off the bench is just nowhere near as interesting. He's not even that interesting as a starter, to be honest. He's a points and threes guy who gets a steal and a couple of assists. But while Giddey is out, we can roll with Huerter. We can use Huerter in that spot. As a long-term play, I don't really think so. And that is what I think of the waiver wire on St. Patrick's Day. We ended up getting there. I hope that provided interest, fun, entertainment, knowledge, stats, whatever. Hope it's all good for you. Hit the thumb on the video. Leave your comments down below. Keep it rolling. Keep those decisions going. Understand context. Put it behind it. Make common sense moves. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.